They were the ones that started the whole process of learning languages, and they got a lot of very nice things going for them. It could be something like getting a better job or changing completely their living situations. But today we're gonna go a little bit more broad. Today we're gonna see what the power of languages can have, the impact that it can have on a lot of communities, especially in the world of humanitarian work. In fact, the Connected by Language podcast is proud to announce that it's participating on the Podcaston 2026 event, a moment of the year where a lot of podcast hosts come and interview different NGOs and charities to spread awareness about the wonders that the world can have. So today, to show the power of languages, we have Amy Ansari, the current CEO of Clear Global. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
I cannot wait to see how, from the very beginning of Clear Global as an NGO started, all the way to the behemoth of a humanitarian work that has been formed into today. But before we do actually go in depth on what Clear Global is today, I think it would be nice for the people joining in for the first time and that are not familiar with your work to give us a little bit of your personal journey and what you're all about.
Okay. So I got my first international development job because I spoke Russian. And I was working in southern Kyrgyzstan just at the end, like just after the Soviet Union had collapsed. So that dates me a bit. And I found that like the job I was supposed to be doing was to help women start small businesses.
Very specific type of job.
Well, at the end of the Soviet Union, it was something that sort of business mindset was something that people weren't very familiar with. And this was really tied to what kind of society the women in southern Kyrgyzstan wanted to build, what they wanted to do, what kind of lives they wanted to have in this whole new world that they were suddenly living in. And I found that if I really wanted to understand their hopes and dreams and desires, I really needed to speak Kyrgyz or Uzbek. That Russian wasn't good enough. And that sort of followed me through my aid career. That idea that we send people, or as aid workers, we go and we speak the lingua franca of an area or a region, or the language that the colonialists spoke. And we expect everybody to understand, but it's not good enough. And I found myself working with translators and interpreters all over the world to help me to try to understand. And what would happen is you'd be in like a village in South Sudan. And I would ask a question like, how many people visited the health clinic this week? And the person standing next to me would translate it into, say, Juba Arabic if I was in South Sudan. And the person next to him would translate it from Juba Arabic to Dinka. And the person next to him would translate it Dinka to another language. And the answer would come back up through that line. And I'd get like 5 goats. So, clearly things had been lost in that whole interpretation chain. And that's part of the reason why when I saw the work that it was Translators Without Borders at the time, now it's Translators Without Borders and Clear Global and Tarjimli, that's when I thought this is really something that is needed by aid organizations, this understanding of how language works, the importance of language, and why aid workers and government services really have to be provided in the right language.
It's interesting because like 9 times out of 10, this sort of like lines of lost by translation usually come as sort of like a comedic timing. You would see videos of people translating something 1,000 times and from Google Translate, but people don't really realize that the actual impact that can create this sort of like problem in translation chain. So having somebody that can take these very different languages and very different contexts and uniting it's something that is very hard and especially like very complicated to set up, especially for these languages that frankly, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I never heard of most of these languages. So it's very difficult to kind of give a little bit of a timeline here. But it seemed that the idea from the Translator Without Borders and Clear Global already stemmed from you working in the world of humanitarian work after the fall of the Soviet Union. But I wanted to ask us a little bit of a tangent, like how did you first find your way to this intersection between language and humanitarian work, even before this, I guess, like event of your life started?
Oh, well, I've been working my mother was someone who really thought learning languages was really important. So I remember her trying to teach me German when I was like 8 years old because we were going on a trip to Germany. So I don't speak German anymore, but
Fine. Yeah. Yeah, every time that there is this show, always there's a way to talk bad about the German language. So we can.
no, I don't talk
You're,
bad about it. But just I didn't for my like when I was in school that they taught French. Like French was the language, and so I learned French first, well after German, and then yeah, a few other, and then we moved around a lot when I was a kid, and so I learned the languages of wherever we were, or I tried to. So, and I realized that very young that it was that if you learn a language, then you're connecting with that society and that culture. You understand it better, and you're accepted more.
curiosity. So since you were moving a lot, you got to learn a lot of different languages, maybe some bits and pieces. So for people that are interested in knowing like your language skills, how many languages do you currently like speak or at least have some knowledge of?
Oh, I only really speak English. I mean, I work for an organization of professional linguists, and I am not a professional linguist. I wish that I was. It's an incredible skill and an incredible talent. But I have worked in English and French and Arabic and Russian. I'm learning Greek right now, and I've taken Portuguese classes and German classes, and I don't know.
It's a lot of languages. There's really
Hustle.
something to not be proud of because like a lot of different people would strive to be able to work in all of the different languages, and it's very impressive that somebody can take in this love for languages and take it to the next level. But speaking about specific languages, one of the main things that appears when you enter the Clear Global website and you start understanding some of the content is a concept known as low resource languages.
Yeah.
So the people that are not like initiated about exactly what a low resource language is, like what does it really mean in practice?
Well, about half the world's population, 3.7 billion people in the world, don't speak a language that is well supported by technology. So even if they have access, if they have a mobile phone, if they have a device, they have access to the internet, they can't get information in their language because it just doesn't exist on the internet in their language. And that's what we mean by low resource languages. Only about 20, 25 languages are very well supported. And it is not at all proportional to the number of people who speak the language. So there is more content in Dutch, for example, a language that I think about 4 million people speak, than there is in Yoruba, which 40 million people speak.
And it was very interesting because our previous episode was about specifically a Dutch woman that started picking up a language of Luganda. She just learning it, and she was currently struggling a lot finding resources about like something as simple as books or even like cartoons that since she has a daughter and all are very difficult to come around. And luckily, technology gives that ability for people to get a little extra connection. Just a simple concept of finding a tutor that can help you in one-on-one languages, one-on-one exchanges is already enough. But there are definitely a lot more contexts where language translation could definitely help more. And we're going to touch on those relatively soon. You mentioned already about Yoruba as a language. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more details about that. Like an example from your work where these language barriers have a very real consequence for people on the ground in everyday life.
Yeah. So Yoruba is a language spoken primarily in Nigeria. And we don't do a whole lot of work in Yoruba. We do a lot of work in the northeast part of the country. And this is one of the best examples I can give of just the impact of language on people's everyday life. People were displaced in northeastern Nigeria because of Boko Haram a few years ago. And you may remember, they were displaced into an area that was primarily a Hausa-speaking area.